Local, live from KCTV5, this is breaking news.
We're continuing our breaking news election coverage where now President-elect Donald Trump has been elected to be the 47th president of the United States.
And we're giving you right there a live look outside the White House. We want to show you also where things stand from the Electoral College map as of right now. So CBS News and the Associated Press declaring the former president has won Wisconsin's 10 electoral votes. We were kind of waiting for one of these states, whether it was Nevada, Arizona, Michigan, or Wisconsin being one of the big ones too, to push him past that 270 benchmark. And as you can see, 276 with Wisconsin won. And Donald Trump actually addressed his supporters at his campaign headquarters in West Palm Beach, Florida. You want to say late last night or early this morning. He declared victory right there just after 1 a.m. this morning.
This was a movement like nobody's ever seen before. And frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country and maybe beyond.
Well, it has been a very long night for folks, extending all the way into this morning for both of those campaigns.
And joining us now from our nation's capital is KCTV5 Washington correspondent Ashanti Ford. She's been joining us as we've been leading up here to Election Day, and here we are the day after. Ashanti, this was a really close race, but the latest numbers show former President Donald Trump is the president-elect. Wisconsin helping him surpass that 270 electoral threshold.
I'm just going to keep it all the way real with you guys. The last 25 minutes in this newsroom has been absolutely insane. From all the numbers that we've been watching piece by piece. I was at the election board, the touchscreen for a second, and then the numbers went to update. That screen froze, road ran back over here. It's just been absolutely chaotic this morning. But Wisconsin was that last state that put him at 277 electoral votes. He was at 216 or 267 rather when I woke up around 2:30 this morning, but just after 5:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, he was officially named the 47th president of the United States. I know many of us watched his speech last night. I heard you guys just play a clip of that, accepting the Oval Office again. And while the polls have said, you know, this was too close of a race for months to call, when it comes down to it, he won by a sizable margin, which is why I've said all year polls don't equate to votes, people do. And these numbers show that supporters of Mr. Trump came out in numbers last night and through early voting, which, as we know, we saw record-breaking numbers for.
Let's shift our focus now to some of the balance of power. Has there been any surprises across the House and the Senate races?
I would say, yeah. We also have an opportunity to potentially see some history there. So as of now, Republicans won control of the Senate, which ends 4 years of Democratic control, and now they're fighting to stay on top of the House. For a little background, all 435 House seats are up for grabs this year. And really, it only takes a few moves to make or break which party ends up on top. I also want to note that Sarah McBride, she will be the first openly transgender member of Congress after she won the election out of Delaware. I should also mention House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. He could be the first black Speaker of the House, which would be history. So lots of things still moving around here in the nation's capital.
Yeah, it's kind of wild that here, less than 12 hours before most of those first polls closed, we already have the results, thinking this would go well into the weekend, but that's not the case. KCTV5 Washington correspondent Ashanti Ford, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you a little bit later here this morning as things develop.
We're also continuing to track all of the local races here this morning, but right now we do want you to get ready for your Thursday, or for your Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday. I know. First Word 5 meteorologist Greg Bennett is joining us this morning at a look at what we can expect today.
We too have been up for quite some time, tracking everything out there politically speaking, but also weather-wise. We've always got your back here at KCTV5, especially with the First Warn 5 weather team. Dense fog advisory. Those are out there just to the north of the metro, but check this out. The actual visibility is dropping quickly right here to the city limits, definitely on the eastern side of town here. This is going to be around Worlds of Fun, Lee Summit area up towards Liberty. We've got downtown coming in around 3 miles of visibility, and the actual airport itself, the international airport, coming in at 7 miles worth of visibility. So a pocket of good stuff there. But once you get into the downtown area, it's going to get lesser and lesser on those roadways that you can see. So be prepared for it. It's a dry forecast for the next couple of days, but look look at this, the moisture really rises as we make it into Saturday. This is where we could actually see a much bigger threat for some wet weather, showers, even some thunderstorm activity. But I've got new information coming in about the intensity of that wet weather threat. We're going to talk about it in our next First Warn 5 weather forecast.
All right, go ahead and take a look at the roads here for you real quick. The good news here this time around here early on, not seeing a lot of folks out on the interstates or the highways, so we're not seeing any big crashes. Well, that doesn't look very good. Let's try that one. There it is. We've got about 3 or 4 stalled cars out there working. I'll tell you a couple about them here. This was 435 in Eastwood Trafficway. It's a semi over on the right shoulder. 635 in Parallel Parkway. And then again down here, I-35 and 119th Street. Again, good news there is that none of those cars are blocking any lanes, so it's not getting in the way of your morning commute here early on if you're headed out there early at 5:05. I do have a big interstate closure to talk about, though, that's happening later on tonight. We'll hit that here in about 15 minutes. Carolina?
Let's get back into more of that breaking election news. There is a strong lean towards sports betting being legalized in the Show Me State in Missouri, with 99% of those votes tabulated. The yes and no sides are separated by about 13,000 votes, with still about 2 precincts left to tally. The push to legalize sports gambling had the support of several major sports teams in Missouri, including the Chiefs, Royals, and the Kansas City Current. And of course, it's already approved here for our neighbors in Kansas. And one of the biggest issues on the ballot for voters across the country is abortion rights. At this point, voters in at least 5 states, including Missouri, decided to protect or expand abortion rights and access. In Missouri, we have been under a ban for 2 years since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. KCTV5's Grace Smith is joining us live from the Uptown Theater, where supporters rallied, taking in this moment and after that measure passed. Grace, what does this mean going forward now?
Carolina, this is really unprecedented what the voters did at the ballot box. And last night they came here to Uptown Theater to celebrate. Missouri now becomes the first state ever to overturn an abortion ban by the voters. So the big question now is what's next. So take a look. Missouri's current law only gives exceptions for abortions in the cases of medical emergencies, no exceptions for rape or incest. The new measure opens those doors back up, allowing for abortions up to fetal viability. It also opens up care and access for reproductive health care. For those with Planned Parenthood Great Plains, this is a big change for Missouri.
We've tried to be open that this crisis is man-made and we can do something to solve it. It won't change overnight. We'll begin the process of litigating, we'll be in court, but we will have a path to restoring access to care.
Yeah, so you heard her there. A big note, guys, is the measure does not explicitly remove Missouri's current law. So the next step is to take it to court to get it overturned. For now, live in Kansas City, Grace Smith, KCTV5 News.
Yeah, this was a really big measure for a lot of families and a lot of voter turnout because of this specific measure, as well as the election.
Big driver to the polls for sure. Grace, thanks for that update.
And as for Missouri's governor, Mike Kehoe will officially replace Mike Parson. Not too much of a sweat for Kehoe, though, receiving over 59% of Missouri's votes.
So he defeats Democratic nominee Crystal Quaid, who is already encouraging her supporters to keep fighting. KCTV5's Nathan Brennan live in Kansas City, Missouri this morning. And Nathan, this was, of course, one of the first races that was called last night.
Yeah, guys, a pretty convincing win for Mike Kehoe. He will officially take over as Missouri's governor, like you guys mentioned, actually receiving about 59% of the vote. Now, that vote isn't official at this point in time. Well, the decision is official, but about 98.5% of those votes have been tallied this morning. And as most politicians do, he went ahead and had a watch party. We'll give you an inside look last night as he ultimately accepted that nomination as Missouri's next governor. He will take over for Governor Mike Parson, who is now leaving office because of term limits. Kehoe began his victory speech last night by honoring his mother and focusing on key issues like public safety and tax cuts.
We are so honored by the faith you have put in our campaign. Our victory today, it's a win for cops. It's a win for our firefighters, for our farmers, for our job creators. It's a win for single mothers.
Now, Kehoe is the heavy favorite over his opposition, Crystal Quaid, as the outgoing state House Democratic minority leader. Her campaign focused on standing up to political extremists in Jefferson City. Despite receiving less than 40% of Missouri's vote, she's still in high spirits.
The fight is not over. And when we wake up tomorrow, we can be sad for a moment, but then we dig in and we get back to work.
And as I mentioned, Missouri's still waiting for those final ballots to be tallied, but about 98.5% of those tallies or of those votes have already been tallied here early this morning. And we know that this decision was made pretty early, before 9 o'clock last night. As for Mike Kehoe, he will officially become Missouri's 58th governor. Reporting live, Nathan Brennan, KCTV5 News.
All right, Nathan, appreciate that update there from the Show Me State. And of course, our election coverage will continue here all morning long.